thought I had just a little bit more time. That 2 minutes went by really too quickly. How's everyone doing? I wonder how long it was a chair stream. We'll get called out on that. That happens more often than you might expect here. A teensy bit more than you might expect. How's everyone doing? Oh, I do believe, Dutch, that most people consider that a downgrade, not an upgrade. Although, I guess for those like sub-tier developers that need Windows recall to remember what they wrote and what they did, it might be helpful. It might be a tool. Yeah, but most people are wrong. So, being on Linux, I feel like I'm in the strong majority. Or strong minority. Strong minority. So, I think I'm good. Especially on Arch. I do believe that Linux is the edgy decision. Still. Like, obviously not in my community. But like, how many people actually run Linux as a desktop? Like, seriously. How many? Not many. I doubt it. How many programmers? Grammars? Gosh dang it. English kills me. How many I can't even do the joke now because I just destroyed it. I have issues. The new Doom is awesome. I do have Xbox Game Pass. I need to work on that because in general I don't play games like Doom on the Xbox because it's in the living room and I have children. This hits the vibes of the Doom though. Okay. Ooh, I can play on Linux? Or when you say PC, do you mean on that which does not get named? That's the problem. Game Pass on Arch. Actually, I need to look that up. I have no idea. Wait. Game Pass on Arch. Only via streaming. Blah. Scott B, welcome. Welcome to the news. All right, well, I've given enough time. Let's go ahead and get into the news this week. We have a couple things to cover. A couple things that I would like to talk about. And yeah, let's hit it up. Let's hit it up. We're gonna talk about fears, speculations on the rise. We're gonna talk about Klarna. If you guys aren't familiar with Klarna, it's one of the most predatory companies in this day and age. It will let you do installment plans for food. We're gonna talk a little bit about security. There's some stuff that's come out that's you should know about. Especially there's a good little piece of news about OpenSUSE in the security world. We have probably the biggest announcement is about Zed. You all know that I love Zed. Zed has not paid me to do anything, although I would accept, Zed, if you're listening, I would accept sponsorship from you. I do love your editor. So we have some stuff about that. We have some open source news around Ubuntu, Rust, ChainGuard. Yeah, ChainGuard's in the open source section today. It's a weird spot for it, but as well as Grafana. We have to cover the Redis news. The Redis drama llamas are strong in this one, and then we have some good old cloud news to cover first. Okay, the first thing I wanted to cover was Klarna. So we've covered Klarna because Klarna basically said 2 years ago it was going to stop hiring because it didn't need to hire anymore because of AI. Now, I said then that a lot of Klarna's jobs are, customer support cases. That's going to be a large portion. And AI actually made a lot of sense in these cases, where they might be able to go and get that first line of support handled through AI. I thought that was reasonable, but they've been making a lot of waves. They're obviously going to IPO, and I wanted to continue covering the story for you all. Klarna flips from AI first to hiring people again. A new landmark survey reveals most AI projects fail to deliver. Now, this is not just this one. I didn't have the time to go too far into every single aspect of Klarna and everything that it said. And we know that titles can be misleading. But I did dig into several different places that posted the news to try to understand better what's going on here. And basically what happened at Klarna is that while in its customer support, its AI strategy does actually do the work of what they understand is about 700 human support agents. It turns out that they don't do as good of a job, as cost unfortunately seems to have been a too predominant evaluation factor when organizing this. What you end up is having lower quality. So in the 2 years that they highly leveraged AI to do these things, they actually suffered from lower quality customer support. So the new plan is more in line with what I was recommending, with that, frontline being the AI, and then much more easily being able to get a hold of a human representative. So it's a little bit of a backpedal, and they're looking to hire quite a few more people. There's also, there's about a 16% scale up in things like engineering and things like that. So it seems like they're doing a little bit of a switchback on their pure AI. We're going to have to follow this more. Like I said, there was a lot of stuff said, and I tried to sift through exactly all of the different things as they're looking to IPO. Now, they're not IPO'd yet, and I expect a lot of this stuff to come out in the IPO. This is what's driving a lot of this would be that IPO. And so, yeah. What about Salesforce? How are they finding their decision? So Salesforce is actually a really interesting one that we've covered a little bit. Their Salesforce agents, the agent force, is interesting because they're actually pulling a Microsoft that they've complained very deeply about Microsoft pulling, and have bundled it with most things. So when they talk about the sales of Agent Force, most of those are bundled for free with your purchase of your Salesforce. So it's actually seen a much lower adoption rate than I think they were expecting. And but I will continue. We went over the last quarter that they did their financials. We actually went over their financials because they actually had a dip in financials, or not a dip. They had their slowest quarter of their entire history. And some of that was because they just weren't selling Agent Force, and they're putting a lot into it. Okay. So I wanted to point this out because another article I saw that I wanted to talk about was this. Software engineer lost his $150,000 a year job to AI. He's being rejected from 800 jobs and forced to DoorDash and live in a trailer to make ends meet. This is a guy from New York. K, I guess, is his legal last name. I'm actually attempting to find this person because I want to interview him here, as well as I have open jobs positions open. If he's a great engineer, there's people who are hiring. So Sean K hasn't been able to find a job for the last year. And I'd love to actually interview him. I was looking at this because of kind of the flip in Klarna's pace, as far as like they're saying, hey, we actually are now hiring, and the AIs haven't paid off exactly. They're not saying this. I'm inferring based off of, hey, we didn't hire anybody. We didn't have any attrition, but we're hiring people again. They actually did. They did say, they didn't say this about their software engineering, which they're doing a 16% increase in hiring for this year. You don't have a 16% hiring in engineering because it's just blowing your mind. Okay. That's the best I can say there. But you had these tech leaders from Anthropic, IBM, and Meta warn that AI is coming for software engineering jobs. And I do think that maybe in the future we will need fewer based off of just increased performance. But a lot of the times increased performance means that you can go on and do other things. It's something we do as human. So I went through and looked for like GitHub CEO is still saying that we're needing human programmers, that they're going to get focused on the higher level things and let the AIs accelerate them. But everyone will need to maintain the software that they build and all of this. And there's a lot of questions about, the context of an AI, if the context is ever going to get big enough to be able to handle some of those issues. So I read through this, and then on top of that, you have Microsoft just recently cut a bunch of jobs. And it turns out that a lot of the people in the 2,000 people cut, about 40% were engineers. Now, honestly, that many engineers is not a big deal to Microsoft. Microsoft employs so many people that when you look at this and you're saying 2,000 people, and 40% of the 2,000 people were engineers, this isn't actually that big of a cut for Microsoft. But one of the really interesting things are when you're looking at what this layoff was because it was stated because of the cost of AI, like the actual cost of AI that was driving this, because the cost of the data centers and those things were doing it. Not that they didn't need those engineers anymore. Now, again, this is all big company politics. It's very difficult to see through big company politics. There's a lot of drivers that see this. And this is another thing that I wanted to bring up, is because when they say one thing that makes them look as good as possible. It's That's just what you have to understand. When a CEO says they're cutting people, they're going to say it for the best reasons possible. You know, when COVID happened, they said, oh, we overhired. But they didn't say, oh, we overhired. They said, oh, microeconomic situation. It sounds better than I screwed up. All right. So anyways, I'm still watching it. I haven't seen myself a drastic decrease in the number of jobs due to AI. I have teams that use AI and they feel more productive with AI. This is, yeah. I'm not saying whether they are or not. They do feel like it. I would recommend that they probably are. That being said, though, there's other things that we can look into that. It's pretty common that code developed with AI has more rework. So there's definitely a issue there. I will talk to Microsoft CEO about this because this is undisputable fact. I've been collecting evidence. Other companies have too. I have talked with them. AI written code has higher rework. And all that's looking for is the code that is checked in. How soon does that code get changed again? And if it's within a month, that's considered rework. So it's not even looking at like Jira or whatnot. If the code that gets checked in gets changed again, that's considered rework. And AI-driven code, it actually gets reworked much more often. Like quite a bit more. Not a statistical error. It takes a lot of work. And this is why I bring up these topics, because I'm not even saying that I'm all the way through to the truth. I myself am trying to understand it. I read a lot of these things to try to understand where the truth is. I spent an hour listening while I was going to sleep to some of the reports and some of the talks that are actually given by the CEOs, and I try to look at the data and understand where that the truth actually lies. Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about security. We have a couple things, 3 things that are interesting to you guys. I know they're interesting to you because, of course, all these things. I am prescient that way. I know what interests you. Critical vulnerabilities in the Ubiquity and Unify Protect cameras allows remote code execution by attackers. This is actually pretty terrifying. It is a score of 10.0. We have talked about how 10.0 is pretty difficult to actually achieve, because basically it requires the ease of execution to be, I walked up or like I found your camera's IP address. So this is actually a pretty big deal. So if you're using Ubiquity's Unify Protect surveillance ecosystem, you need to patch it immediately. You need to take it offline, you need to patch it, and you need to get it. This CVE is horrifying. And it allows full remote control, remote code execution as admin, which means then they can even once it's patched, they can maintain access because they could have made their own backdoor. So when you have a CVE like this, it's actually really important, especially if you're like on an enterprise. You need to actually scan the system at this point, because you need to make sure that there's no, no access you wouldn't expect from your system. This is actually a great thing for an AI to be watching. Like an AI could be watching your network and look for traffic that doesn't belong there. Traffic coming into. This is another great place for firewall rules that can help protect from some of that type of stuff. So anyways, be on the lookout for it if you use that. I know I do. I'm patched. And yeah, but I'm actually still monitoring. I'm still monitoring. It's terrifying. OpenSUSE removes depend desktop over security policy violations. So if you're on OpenSUSE and you've been enjoying a little bit of depend as your desktop, it's gone. I actually really appreciate OpenSUSE's policies that they stick to here. OpenSUSE has a lot of requirements for things that join their community, and they take them very seriously. And the SUSE security team, for when they take stuff into the OpenSUSE distribution, basically has to like review those things. And there's a bunch of rules and requirements. Anyways, there's this. They discovered a license agreement that bypassed security checks, installing components flagged by the security team as potentially unsafe simply by accepting the license. So basically, depend was doing stuff, leveraging a license agreement to hide stuff that wouldn't get past the security team. And so it got removed. I don't know. I didn't go all the way into exactly what depend was doing that the security team didn't like, but there are requirements and they were not following them. And I think what made it worse is that they were purposefully hiding those things. They didn't find a way to work around them or work with OpenSUSE. Instead, they hid them to do them. So anyways, if you're on an OpenSUSE distribution and you wanted to try out depend, you can't do it through the OpenSUSE distribution anymore. So the last thing that I wanted to report on was that there was a reported Valve Steam data breach. And at first, this looked like it was really serious. At first, it was suggested that the two-factor auth codes were actually in this, and that, you know, your account was at risk of being sold. The leak consisted of older text messages that included one-time codes that were only valid for 15-minute frame and the phone numbers that they were sent to. The leak data did not associate the phone numbers with the Steam account, password information, payment information, or other personal data. So there was a leak, there was a breach here, and there was one-time codes that were breached, but all of them were outside of the 15-minute time window. My understanding, the newest ones that were in the data, I don't remember, it was a couple weeks old. It was like a month old data. And so there is actually nothing here. They can get phone numbers, which is annoying, but they're not actually in the breach, doesn't have any data tied. This is why it's so important to have security be a big player. So you know what's leaked, what happened, and you can rest assured people what happened. So anyways, it's good comeback, or a good, not comeback, but a good response to a bad situation. Thankfully, there doesn't seem to be anything for you to do, and you're not vulnerable to anything right now. You're using Hyperland? Cool. All right, what do we want to talk about next? We have AI. Really, Google dominated the AI space here. We have open source. Do we guys want to jump to open source and then do AI, or do we want to do AI then open source? It's your guys' call. You pick. AI first. All right. So the biggest deal that happened to AI, probably the biggest thing to happen to AI this century, I know, bold statement. Bold statements are for winners. Was the newest release of Zed. Now, you all know that I actually really love Zed. I think it's a pretty fantastic IDE. If I wanted to use an IDE, it has the best Vim motion support. It is snappy. I don't need, I'm not sponsored, just so you all know. I just really like Zed. And it works on Arch just natively, fantastically. Anyways, if you wanted to use Zed, but you were sad that they didn't have agentic editing, which is all the new fad, Zed now supports agentic coding. So jump in there and start using it. There's a 14-day free trial, then there's a pro plan, and there's an also bring your own keys. I'm gonna try the bring your own keys tomorrow. So if you're interested in how that goes, I'm gonna give that a shot. I could also do the 14-day trial. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. But I'm excited. I actually really do like Zed. I think some of you think it's a joke. I think Zed is maybe the most. It's by far better than VS Code. Not hard to do, but better. Zed is dead. That's ban-worthy. What? What? 293 frames does nothing until the AI responds. Okay. You know what? There's something that I've been wanting to do. And if people in the community want to try this with me, I'd like to try this. I'd like to try the multiplayer IDE part where I could like invite people to work with me. I don't know if I can do it over a public internet or if I'd have to invite you to give you SSH access to my network. I don't know how it works. That's something else we could try tomorrow. I know Pulp Fiction is a movie. You can't get that one on me. I have not seen it, but I know it's a movie. Is there a person called Zed? Oh my goodness. Well, I missed it. You guys got to stop using popular culture. Like, you guys got to stop using popular culture on me. It hurts. When was Pulp Fiction made? $1994. 1994. Unholy Driver, what's up? Oh my goodness, you guys can't look. If it's not on TikTok, I don't know what it is. Okay? That's about it. That's my only popular culture that I know. Okay? Just give me a break. All right, let's move on to some other agentic news. Oh, do you know what we did last week? Do you know what we did last week? We made a news web scraper. They used AI to pick the top 3 things from a website. That was actually fantastic. I had so much fun last week. That was kind of fun. Anyways, moving on. CodeRabbit is now free in Visual Studio Code. If you've been wanting to use CodeRabbit AI reviews and you want to actually get it shifting left, we know that shift left is a fantastic phenomenon where we shift everything onto developers. We can now shift left onto AIs off of the developers. I actually think that AI code reviews that can spot simple things easily and quickly for you, like misspellings or just, you know, some very simple logic errors, is a fantastic use of AI. I don't know if CodeRabbit, we're gonna have to give it a shot. Unfortunately, it's not in Z, but I can try it in VS Code. I'm actually interested in how well it does, but it's now in the IDE. So yeah, super cool. Super cool. Taking AI news to the next level. I know. So last week we literally built a thing that uses a web browser and goes and gets news articles and like tries to get the top ones. And now there's a little bit of training. And what I think we will do instead of training, I think we'll try to just rag it with like what people liked. So the next system that we have to build is a way for you guys to vote in chat when you like an article or like a topic and don't like a topic, so that we can rag the AI with that information and try to get it to like pull out interesting topics for the community. That's the hope and goal in the end. But anyways, let's get back to the news. Talking about bots and scraping the web with bots, we all know that AIs are not the greatest web neighbor. They're not the greatest. So understanding what and where and who a bot is actually not a great process at this point. It's not a great process. We're using IPs mostly, and like the user agent. Most bots don't set the user agent and use like Chromium, which isn't good and not what they're supposed to do. So yeah, the user agent header, and then the other way to detect bots is from IPs, just a known list of bot IP addresses, and that's kind of that. So Cloudflare has decided to make a new process for detecting bots, and this is a way to be a good bot. Now this takes time, and this isn't actually anything new. So these are, you can go through here with existing bot things, but it's just HTTP message signatures. Everybody knows what this is. This is what you do when you want to authenticate a webhook or anything like that. It's not new technology. They're just wanting bots to basically sign their HTTP messages so that you can tell what bot it is, and you can register that bot sign-in key somewhere, like the web does, like the HTTPS part, except it's kind of the inverse. It's almost like an MTLS, but that, yeah, no, is something. And then you can validate that signature inside of it. Pretty cool. The other one is a request MTLS, basically a mutual authentication. So this one isn't mutual authentication. You're not mutually authenticating. You're just signing your message, where I sign it and you can tell where it comes from. It's kind of the opposite of HTTPS. It's telling where the request came from instead of where the request is going. With MTLS, it's mutual authentication. So they're testing out two different ways, which is kind of interesting. If our bot ever actually starts doing stuff for real every single day, I think we'll try to sign up with the message signature and add a message signature to ours and join their program that allows us to validate that we're a bot and that we're respecting people's robots text. Because that's something I would feel strongly about. I don't want to abuse people's websites. I'd like to be a good bot neighbor. Could I read the author? Sure. What's wrong with the author? It's my daughter's name. I know. I never knew Amari before this. The fact that robots.txt is the solution to the problem isn't. Look, when you make, I look at websites like Walmart, right? A website is like Walmart. It's not public, but it's kind of public. You're saying anybody's really welcome, but you have rules to respect. I think that's what the robot text file is. This is a public declaration of our rules and how we want you to behave while on our semi-public domain. Now, what I do think that we need to get better about is enforcing those rules. You set them out there. There should be a better way of saying, okay, you are a bot and you're not following the rules. I don't want you. So I don't think it's inherently about robot.txt wasn't an enforcement mechanism. It was, this is my rules for engagement. I don't want cheap viewers. I want those premium viewers, okay? You know, and look, if you're gonna sell me viewers, you gotta at least first come in here and chat a little while, you know? I went down the web scraping prevention rabbit hole, and it's pretty much impossible at the moment. Yeah, it's pretty hard. I agree. I would love to see more tools designed for that. I think the reason we don't, I think the reason we don't is it's a hard thing to sell. I think somebody like Cloudflare could sell it as a service inside of their services, but as like an open source project, I don't think it would be very easy to make a company around that as something that you host. So I think that's probably why we don't see it as much. I've been reporting them with the comment, cheap viewers. I know, I want those premium viewers. The unholy driver, I would love to see a framework around it. Cloudflare actually did release a framework for it, but again, it works with Cloudflare. So basically what Cloudflare did, and I can find it, but what Cloudflare did was, I covered this in the news a couple weeks ago. They built an AI that builds a maze for unwanted bots. So basically yeah, anyways, that's what it does. I think it would be a cool project to try to build an AI that detects bots. I'm not sure I'm smart enough to do that. And I definitely don't have the hardware right now. I am on a waiting list to get the hardware. I need to save up the money to get it. It's $4,000, but I would really like to get it. So we'll see. AI companies are the type of people to sell you that after they DDoSed you. Well, we have several examples of legitimate websites getting DDoSed by AIs that are trying to scrape the data. So it's NVIDIA. It's NVIDIA. I want to get the NVIDIA Spark, the the mini super AI computer. It's $4,000. $4,000. It's so much, but if I'm able to do it, I plan on getting people in the community SSH access to it. If for nothing else, just to play around with it a little bit. All right. Oh, I don't know why I'm at the bottom of the... I do read all of these things here. Oh, okay, yeah. The Ollama's new engine for multi-model models. So we've all used Ollama here on this channel a little bit. And as new multi-models come out, it turned out that Ollama's original engine for running these models didn't really support multi-models very well. And so they did a rework of the Ollama that has support for the multi-models. So you can like upload a video or a picture and ask questions about it. And if you have a multi-model that supports that, you'll be able to do it. So like, yeah, what do you see in this image? And you know, it will add the image and whatnot. So they had to do an engine rework to support these multi-models, and I wanted to give that a shout out. So if you're using Ollama and want to try this out, go for it. So if you guys look, I am looking at obtaining. Let's I'm looking at trying to save up enough to buy the NVIDIA Spark. It's going to be able to run a 200 billion parameter model locally. I'm not actually super interested in this. I'm interested in training, like doing some fine tuning of larger models. I mean, obviously we'll have to run them locally as well, but I'm more interested in the training, the fine tuning, and the prototyping. I'd like to prototype some of this stuff and actually learn how to prototype my own stuff. So I'm more interested in learning to prototype and fine tune and learning. That's learning. I'm more interested in that than hosting the big models locally. Don't worry, get me wrong. We'll host the big models locally to give them a shot. But that's what we're looking for. Anyways, let's go back to the news. Wow, so clutch. Alpha Evolve was literally, look, we're on Olama, Alpha Evolve. So, good job. Good job reading my mind. Alpha Evolve, a Gemini-powered coding agent for designing advanced algorithms. Now, the one thing I want to know your guys' thoughts, because every time I've used Gemini, it's been a dumpster fire. And I mean, even with, as of a week and a half ago, I asked Gemini some of the most basic questions about Google Cloud, something it should be really good at, and it just completely failed me, like on multiple levels. So anytime I see Gemini powered, I don't have a good feeling about the thing. Yeah, I'm using Gemini 2.5. Like, I'm using the latest Gemini. But every time I use it, it's just a raging dumpster fire. And everybody's like, oh, it's so amazing. I literally haven't gone to, like, tomorrow, I can try to get access to it on my personal account. I have used it with my work account. I can try to demo some of the dumb stuff that it does for me. Yeah, anyways, so you know what I think of this? Alpha Evolve is effectively Cursor, right? So designing better algorithms with large language models. So basically what they're doing here, if you like dig into what Alpha Evolve is doing, is basically Alpha Evolve is kind of trying to hallucinate. It's throwing stuff out there, and then it's holding the things that it throws out there to preset parameters. So this is preset parameters that you could provide or that are provided originally. So they say, hey, does it hold set to this? You know, 2 + 2 has to be 4. And if you're saying otherwise, if you need it to be otherwise, it's wrong, okay? And so basically it's saying, let it go out there and make some stuff up and then test it against predefined knowns and things like that to try to limit the hallucinations down into like workable things. And so it works a lot of the same ways that Cursor does. You know, we've actually proven in the last AI games that Cursor was better than the base Claude. And the reason it's better is because it does a bunch of this type of stuff. It says, hey, did you run the test and does the test still pass? Hey, did you do these things and did that get better? Did you run FMT and did FMT, you know, make any changes? You know, so it does all of those things and it then re-prompts the AI with the feedback from those things. And that has been, I think Cursor is the greatest example of a huge success in making the AIs actually better at the things that they do. So Evolve is effectively just the same thing, but with Gemini and around designing scientific problems. So that's what this looks like. It looks like a scientist would leverage it to basically put forth some requirements, some assumptions, some things like that, and then try to get the AI to come up with some ideas that they can test against those assumptions and things like that. So it's interesting. I actually think it's interesting. It's a possibility. If it wasn't based on Gemini, it might be good. But yeah, it's unfortunately based on Gemini. So we'll move on. Now, that being said, Google's execs did celebrate a company first with an AI game changer. That was the 2024 environmental report. You can go download it, but I did download it for you. There was nothing really that interesting. They do have their net zero carbon, but the big game changer was that the team used AI to summarize reports, then validated that the summaries were good, and it saved them time, a little bit of time, by having AI summarize them. Total emissions are up, even though the quantity of reusable is higher. They're just that much higher on total consumption. I didn't really dig too far into this. Like it's fine. But everybody was talking about how they leveraged AI to build the report, to summarize other reports. I hope all their data is correct, is all I can say. I've seen the summarize go terribly wrong. Ooh, so I actually just, Gemini will actually do like meeting notes for you, and it will take a summary of everything. Turn that off. I have made it a policy now in my teams. Gemini does not take notes, period. Absolutely. This is a fail that just happened. I've been watching it, and I've been watching the AI, and its summaries are just bad. Somebody will be like, oh, I think, somebody will be like, oh, well, we could delete a few. And then somebody will be like frustrated and be like, yeah, we should just delete them all. And then it will be like, Merrick said we should delete all of our infrastructure. Next line. It's the worst, most misleading notes overview I have ever read. I have watched a couple of them. It's done. It will never take notes for a meeting for me again. This is every single time I use, every single time I try to use a Gemini, it just bites me and it hurts. All right. Let's talk about how Microsoft is going all in on Linux. You didn't expect that here today, did you? You didn't expect it, but that's the news. I only report it, I don't make it. You probably heard of Apple Lisa, but what about Microsoft Lisa? The Linux Integration Service Automation Project was originally developed by Microsoft Linux Systems Group for validating OS images. Now, the tool has always been open source, but you can now use it with Microsoft Azure. Azure is a self-service tool to validate Linux VM images on Azure. This is actually really, really good. One, I actually did this. I validated a Rocky Linux thing, and it was a complete nightmare because the validation image tool actually only runs on Windows, even though it's validating a Linux thing. So I had to like run a Windows VM. It was a complete nightmare, a complete pain. It was dumb. And so having it as a service is fantastic. Yeah, I'm actually super excited about this. Not going to lie, but if you want to see more, it's here. Go check it out. All right. Question for you all. Who here knows which company has changed their open source license the most? Any guesses? Dang it. I think I put it in my thing. I did, didn't I? I actually don't know who has the most. But March 20th, 2024. Future Redis releases will continue to offer free and permissive use of the source code under the dual license RSLA v2 and the SSPL v1 licenses. These releases will combine advanced data types and processing engines previously only available in Redis Stack. Beginning today, all future versions of Redis will be released with source available licenses. Now, you all know my take on source available licenses. They're a plague. You don't touch them. You don't want to touch them. They're a plague. All right. Now, don't touch them. This was March 20th, 2024. I actually covered this on the news. Fast forward to May 1st, 2025. Redis is now available under the AGP v3 open source license. Now, how long will Redis stay open source? Now, it is under the AGPL v3, which isn't my favorite open source license, but it's at least an open source license and is at least acceptable. So if you're wanting to move to Redis 8 at least isn't source available. It is actually open source now. You can actually look at the code without fearing for your sanity. So yeah, there you go. Schrodinger's license software. You don't know what the license is until you observe it. And by observing the license of Redis, you Redis now has a license for their license because they don't want other people to leverage their license. And it states that you cannot observe the license at which you get. So anyways, that happened. I wanted to poke fun of it. So I did. I get being a company is difficult. Obviously, it didn't go as well as they had planned. That's all I'm going to say. It didn't win them customers. It didn't win them fans. It would have been better to go to the AGPL, like Grafana did. Did we skip open source? We did skip open source. We got jumped into open source. It won them a Rust rewrite. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. All right, let's jump into open source really quickly. There's some cool things. First thing, Ubuntu 25.10 will default to Rust RS or sudo-rs or sudo. Now, I'm watching this closely because I want to see the impact of this. Just because it's written in Rust doesn't mean it will be more secure. It should have less memory-related issues that have plagued sudo in the past, but that's not the only type of security vulnerabilities you can have. So I realize that this isn't their long-term support, the 25.10. We'll have to see how well it does here, and really if it's in the 26.04, that's when it's going to really prove whether it's actually a big deal or not. 26 or 2804. That's like the big deal. We have to wait. In the 2510, this is kind of, you know, the test it and see how it works. So anyways, I'm excited about it. We'll see. This is one of the biggest, most used, you know, like everybody used sudo. So it's really cool to see this actually get replaced with this. We'll just have to see if it actually gives better security. We'll have to see how many CVEs it has. Blazingly fast, elevated privileges. Not always a good thing. Some would say the exact same thing about Ubiquity's. Yeah, Ubiquity's surveillance ecosystem. Blazingly fast, elevated privileges. I'm sorry. Okay. Talking about Rust, let's talk about 187. 187 has, let us talk about it, anonymous pipes. Adds access to anonymous pipes to the standard library. This includes integration with the commands input-output method. For example, joining the standard out and standard error streams into one is now relatively... You want to know that we were just dealing with this last week. Now this was in Python, but it was joining the two streams and it was using a library. But like this right here was a thing that we just dealt with. And it used to have required two separate threads. Like this would have actually been a nightmare. And now you can actually do these anonymous pipes to the different, like the standard out and standard in or error, to pipe data from here to here. Like super cool, super cool. And just, it makes everything so much easier. It's a Canadian vent, but do you follow Pwn to own? No, I do not. So in 187, there is other things in here. So one thing, this doesn't really affect me, but I know people that write device firmware and probably Linux core features. Safe architecture is now intrinsic. So it used to be that, you know, it used to be that like if you did this, there was a lot of stuff that you had to wrap in unsafe. But now if you're saying that your architecture is this, then it can leverage that anything in this is safe. So you don't have to wrap all of this stuff in unsafe because you're saying this is only for this architecture. So it just cleans up a lot of unsafe wraps that were safe if you're already forcing it to be in that architecture. So now you can use safe code for the core loop, which is pretty cool. Awesome. That way your logic can be encapsulated in safe code, which is actually, should be pretty awesome for people. Inline assembly can now jump to labeled blocks within the Rust code. I think that this is probably came from the people using Rust in Linux. I wonder, I don't know where this came from. My guess is the people on the Linux kernel or writing some of the plugins for the Linux kernel actually have these assembly blocks, and that would be my assumption, right? I don't ever use this, but it's actually really cool to see features that are for specific ecosystems, that are for specific groups of people that do specific groups of things to empower them. So it's really cool to see. Again, not really me, but For type capturing plus use in implement trait in trait definition. I don't even know what this one is. What is this one? This I thought I read the whole thing. I obviously stopped. This release stabilizes specifying the specific capture generic types and lifetimes in trait definitions using them. Okay, right. We had actually talked about this, about how they were expanding the stabilization of the traits. So that's cool. Okay. The next big thing to hit open source was ChainGuard. I'm gonna see if Dan Lornick will join us again to talk about the language libraries, what their future is. I know Dan Lornick's been on the show before. He's one of the founders of ChainGuard. I like the work that the language library is built from source. So this whole supply chain attack that can happen, I don't know if I've ever talked to you guys about Salsa and like the Salsa build levels and showing where and how something got built. It's actually a hard task, and a lot of open source libraries don't have that. Some dude just builds it off their libraries and posts it to GitHub. Well, ChainGuard is trying to fix that for people and allows you, right now it's just Java and Pythons, but they actually build like 20,000 Java and Python libraries in a, like, I don't know if they're Salsa, but like in a verifiable, publicly verifiable build system to prove that the build wasn't a spot for a supply chain attack. So this is really cool. If you guys are using their containers, so they already had containers, and that's something that I've used and done with them. They now have their ChainGuard libraries, and I know that they did their VM. I don't care about their VMs, whatever. Why they did that, I don't know. So anyways, super cool. I'm gonna see if Dan Lornick can join. And for the last one, I actually have friends that work there, so none of this is sponsored, but I do have friends that work there, which probably makes me biased. I'll see if some of them can come and join the show. I don't know if they can. But if they can, I'll get some people to come and talk about Grafana. Now, Grafana 12 is maybe the first usable release of Grafana. I know that's a bold statement. Tons of people have been using it, but you've been using it wrong this entire time. Something I have asked for literal years has finally been included. I'm probably like the world's ultimate PM. I have been asking for this. Observability as code. Grafana 12 introduces a new suite of observability as code tools that help you automate observability workflows in your org. The new observability as code features and functionality allow you to version, validate, and deploy dashboards like any other code base in your organization, reducing manual process and increasing consistency across your team. This has been a thorn in my side for Grafana for years. I have told everybody that I know this is what you need to do, and I'm super pumped that it's finally come. I'm like very excited. Like, this is the biggest release of Grafana in forever. This makes Grafana amazing to manage across. I mean, I haven't actually used it, but if it actually works, awesome. GitSync, a little GitOps here. A little GitOps goes a long way. It's like, hello, thank you, yes please. I'm super excited about Grafana 12. Say hello to GitSync, a new observability as code tool in Grafana 12. Amazing. This is fantastic. Now, dynamic dashboards sound cool, but like, compared to this stuff up here, who needs dynamic dashboards that resize when you're viewing it on your phone, that hide things that don't have any data to them? Who needs that? Who can get excited about this truly awesome feature that makes dashboards even better when you have GitSync and observability as code? I can't. It's just too normal of a release item. So, anyways, Grafana 12 looks amazing. I'm excited. That was it for open source. That was it. Would you guys be interested? I know several engineers. I don't know if they can like come and speak, but I think they probably can. Would you guys be interested in me trying to get them on to chat a little bit? And if we got somebody from Grafana, one of the engineers, what would we want to talk about? Besides, obviously, observability as code. Okay, let's talk about the clouds really quickly, and then I gotta get running. Databricks said Wednesday it's buying Neon for $1 billion. Small price. That's all you could get Neon. Do better next time. Do better. That's really fantastic. Good job to the Neon people. Congratulations. I wanted to bring this up because talking about cloud, not this. Wait. This. I wanted to talk about this next. Talking about Neon serverless Postgres, an Azure native integration is now generally available. It's interesting that like when they got that offer or when they're like in talks, they also were expanding to work on Azure. So if you've been wanting to use Neon serverless Postgres offering in a modern serverless and fully managed Postgres servers developed through collaboration with Microsoft and Neon, if that's what you're wanting, if that gets you excited and not observability as code, it's there. It's there. Super cool. That's actually the only Microsoft noteworthy thing that I saw. I was going through this. It was pretty lame, honestly. Microsoft needs to step up their game. But if we're talking about Azure, they actually had a couple things that I thought might make your life a little bit better. SES Mail Manager adds debug logging for traffic policies. So if you have interesting traffic policies and you're not quite sure which traffic policies are going what, where, and why, and how, I have been in this position before. They now have debug logging, which would have saved me literal weeks of my life in a previous job. So that's actually fantastic. So if it's you, but it's probably a small group of people. The Amazon open search ingestion increased memory to 15 gigabytes. I'm not sure if this is a huge deal, but it's a thing. And so I wanted to shout it out because if you've jumped on OpenSearch, there's an increase to 15 gigabytes. Go for it. Amazon EC2. This is probably the biggest thing for you machine learning nerds out there. If you're really wanting to get your hands on those sweet B200 GPUs, it's now generally available. General available gives you an SLA. Not only does it give you an SLA, generally it means it's in more regions. When it's not in general availability, not everything is in every region though. So I'm not saying all regions, but it's in more regions. So there you go. Get your hands on some sweet B200s. SES Mail Manager. We should be. That does sound like a sim game. Like oh. All right. Google AI assisted MCP toolbox. So let's talk about how we built Cloud WAN to support businesses amid the rise of AI. This was one thing. There's the MCP toolbox for databases. If you're trying to connect your agent to a database in Google Cloud, awesome. So the developers can now use the toolbox with their preferred IDEs such as Cursor, Windsurf, Claude Desktop, and more. So cool. But let's move on to the real stuff. They're talking about WAN, amid the rise of AI and the types of improvements that they are doing to it to support you people on a WAN with AI. I don't know if this will be interesting. If you're on GCP, which I don't know if any of the 3 people that actually use GCP are here, but if you are here, I would check this out. It looked interesting as far as some of the stuff that they were talking about. I don't know how much it actually affects people though. Four people? Yeah, I mean 3 or 4, possibly. There might even be 5 if there's a person I don't know about. Not many people use Google Cloud. Like, have you tried to use Gemini? Google made a, like, this is their problem. Google made a cloud that made people use it like Google thought that they should, not like how they wanted to use it. They made a cloud assuming that people programmed and deployed like Google. They made a cloud that has a simple UI. Look, I can't tell you the number of interesting, stupid Google things that just do things a Google way and are super annoying because it's a Google way of doing it. Like, don't get me started on their attached drives. Their attached drives are bogus hogwash. Absolutely. To the fact of like, did you actually even write to the disk? We don't know. And neither does the hard drive. Because Google will be like, oh, did you actually want to know if you wrote your data to disk? Is that actually important to you? Do you care if we can actually get your data, or maybe it's a little corrupted? You don't know your data's corrupted? Just the Google idiosyncrasies throughout their entire cloud is mind-boggling. It's a need-to-know scenario. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a need-to-know scenario. Yeah, I can go on, but like Google to me is my least favorite. Does Scott know the other 2 users? That's what your work is like about any detail they don't want to explain. Yeah, I find Google Cloud to be like AWS. Like if there was personas here, AWS is that like the MacGyver. The UI is terrible, the whatnot, but like you can do whatever you want. It might be held together with a paperclip, and that paperclip might be glowing red, but like it's fine. It will do it. You can do it. Google is then more of like the, I hate to say this because it's not really true, but Google's persona then falls more towards like Mission Impossible. There is exactly one way to do this, like the old Mission Impossible, not the new Mission Impossible, the old Mission Impossible. There is exactly one way of doing this, and it's their way, which is highly confusing and illogical. But if you do it exactly their way, without one little itty bitty mistake, it'll turn out. But you have to close your eyes and believe, because it's not going to make any sense until the very end. And if you want to do it your way, well, screw you. Azure's kind of somewhere in between. I'm going to say like the James Bond, if we had MacGyver. You can get a little dirty, but they also definitely have like the Microsoft tint or taint. I'm not sure which word I was going for there, but Mission Impossible 9 selling GCP. What's the actor's name? There's an actor that does a lot of those, right? What's his name? What's Tom's final mission. I like it. I like it. Oh my gosh. All right. All right. Well, fantastic. The crap stack? Did you were you using my stack? That's the kerflop stack. Never mind. I need to make a video on that. All right. With that, I've got to go. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend. I hope your week went well. I hope you found the news. Join me tomorrow. We're going to be working on the command line game, but also just ingesting, because I want to be able to run all the time so that you guys can vote on stuff, like when we're doing news articles. So I'd like to be able to get your feedback somehow. So anyways, we're going to be hanging out and chilling tomorrow. Nothing too strenuous. We're going to just play around with some of our systems and get some of our stuff in a little bit of a better spot. I'm also going to brush off my learning Rust by building a project. I don't know exactly where I left it. I know exactly where I left it, but I haven't touched that code for a little while. So we're going to play around a little bit with that code tomorrow, just to get my feet wet with it again. I don't have a plan for getting anything done in it. Just get my feet wet with it again, because I actually want to make those YouTube videos for that specifically. So we're just gonna hang out tomorrow. So join me and we'll hang out. Thanks everybody. Thanks for everything that you've done. Thanks for joining and supporting and being here. And I hope that this news was helpful, and I will see you guys next week.